Welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Romano. In today's video, we're going to talk about what Bernie Madoff and Sam Bankman-Fried had in common. We know that there were two frauds, but we're going to discuss how they became so successful. And when you study success and what it is, we know that both of them were basically gurus at raising capital, okay? Because Bernie Madoff was able to raise an exorbitant amount of money during that era, and he didn't trade, he didn't do anything with the capital except run a Ponzi scheme. And Sam Bankman-Fried, basically the same thing, because he couldn't trade. He wasn't a professional trader who had 5-6 years experience. He only worked, I believe, 2 years at a company, and I'm starting to notice a very similar path between people who are entrepreneurs. Now, yes, Bernie Madoff and Sam Bankman-Fried, they were frauds. They were gifted at something, and I want to share with you what that actual gift was. Before we continue the video, please remember to subscribe to my channel and do thumbs up. It's right there. It doesn't hurt to press it, and if you press it, it will really help me out and to grow my channel. Thank you so much. So part of being an entrepreneur, now they have majors in it, and you young kids out there, if you are really fed up with making nothing and working for minimum wage, having to get a new job every 2 years, then maybe you should study entrepreneurship, honestly, and study finance as well. So you could have a dual major, or you could do your electives in finance and you could major in entrepreneurship. This will be very important because within 2 years to 10 years, we are going to see an economic boom in this country that we haven't seen since the 20s. It's going to be bigger than the real estate boom since the 90s, mid-1994 into about 2022 was the real estate cycle. That's ended, finally, but now factories will come back. And so this is why you should really think about, for those of you who have certain type of qualities that I'm going to talk about, you should really focus on that. What is an entrepreneur? Okay? That type of person has a drive, like myself, who I don't give up. When someone tells me no, and I work even harder. For example, my uncle told me that I would never do good in finance and I shouldn't waste my time in going to school for that. So I went through college and I didn't major in finance or business. That was a mistake because after I almost graduated, I had to change my major because I hated the classes that I was taking, psychology, and I wanted to start taking economics. I was getting triple A's with that. So I realized what my niche was, but it took a while. I started to realize what I was good at, and it took a while to get there. Because I got my first job, I realized that it seemed like people only lasted 2.5 years at that particular company. And there's a book called The Book of Occupational Titles. And in that book is where I get the 2.5 years average people last, to 5 years. If you last more than 5 years, you're very lucky. And you probably are those people that know how to get rid of your competition. So it doesn't mean that you're talented. No, you're talented at getting rid of your competition. For those of us who have talent, and that we don't want to deal with these monster people at companies, then the best bet is to open up your own company. And so I'm going to share with you what a lot of these people had in common. Bernie Madoff was a fraud. He never actually had a hedge fund. It was all fake. But he had a quality about him, and that was a good salesperson. And again, Sam Bankman-Fried, he had no experience, he had no talent, but he was really good at raising capital and convincing people that he knew what he was talking about. He didn't have 20 years experience, and Bernie Madoff did not have 20 years experience either, because when he started, it was only like a year or 2 years out of college that he actually started on his own. Ray Dalio, a very famous name in the hedge fund industry, he also worked for 2 different companies, a year each, I think. When he finished college, he went to my university, Long Island University, and he started his company because he was giving advice, and that's how Bridgewater came about. And someone else who is very famous today, his name is Ken Griffin. And Ken Griffin will become the biggest name in the hedge fund industry. And he's not there yet, but he's getting there. Ray Dalio is much bigger, but Ken Griffin started in a dorm room, and he started a company called Citadel, and he started trading. So people who are entrepreneurs, they don't even have the mindset that they're going to go and get a job, because for certain people that's a waste of time. For people like me, getting a job is not possible. People actually do things to get rid of me. The investment banks that I used to work for, they were submitting fake reports on my terminal to get me fired. Those were trading books. At another company, I was poisoned to get rid of me. Again, if you're one of these people that really has talent, but somehow in the workforce, you're held back, people don't recognize you. It's not that they don't recognize you, it's they're the bullies, and they're going to get rid of you. And they will do everything to get rid of you. You need to have a quality to be a salesman, and you need to study people like Sam Bankman-Fried. I've watched many videos on how he spoke. There's nothing that tells me he was a good speaker. There was nothing that told me that he had confidence when he spoke. He didn't have experience. So how on earth, over a 2-year period, did he raise 10 billion or 50 billion or whatever the number is? Okay, I get different amounts based on which video. If it is 10 billion for Alameda Research, that's an exorbitant amount of money. Ken Griffin only has, I think, 60 billion approximately. Of course, Ray Dalio is around much longer, so he has over 100-something billion in AUM. But you have to analyze these people. Why did they become so successful at raising capital? Bernie Madoff, at the time, it wasn't an actual hedge fund, but people thought he was a hedge fund manager. He raised billions of dollars. He raised an exorbitant amount of money. We don't really know how much that is, but it's a lot of money at that time. And so again, he had a quality that Sam Bankman-Fried had, Ray Dalio has that quality, and Ken Griffin has that quality. And there's many other people. Of course, Warren Buffett, yes, he is a real success in his career. He's not a hedge fund manager. He uses a traditional investment approach by analyzing actual companies, and he invests in the company for the long haul, whereas as Ray Dalio and those other people, they're trading on short term. What do these people have in common? Well, I noticed that they don't accept no. If you say no to them, they see that as it gives them energy to succeed even more. Joan Crawford, she was successful at being a movie star. They even made a movie about her called Mommy Dearest. And what I also noticed about her personality is she was a good saleswoman. She was a good salesman at selling who she was, portraying that she's the best. And possibly, maybe sometimes it's what you have in your mind. Maybe it's a psychological visualization that you have about yourself, that people see it subconsciously. So I hope I have that, and I think of myself as being, very driven, and possibly I do see Bernie Madoff with that quality that mentally he probably thought he was the world. And Sam Bankman-Fried as well. And Ray Dalio, Ken Griffin, Warren Buffett, all these people, they believed in themselves. And when you believe in yourself, you will ascertain that quality over time. Being a king of a country, so to speak. Yes, I know if you're a king of a country like Prince Charles or someone else, I think Prince Charles, he doesn't exude that quality, only because he was a prince his whole life. He's in his old age now. His son is portraying that quality, that confidence. And what I've noticed in salespeople who are very successful, like Mark Cuban, he created a company, he made $1 billion or so, and he sold a product, which was software. He has that quality, that confidence quality. Playing sports is not an indicator that you're going to have this quality. Being successful in college and getting A's, you're not going to have this quality. It's a mental quality. And you need to portray that when you're selling a product. I used to sell commercial real estate, and I had to portray success. So I made sure that I bought the best suits, the best ties, and I have a beautiful English briefcase that at the time was very expensive. Today it's like $6,000. And the good shoes that I bought that were Italian, the belt, everything, that portrays success to someone. Someone subconsciously. The Rolex with the gold and the diamonds, that portrays success. And even if you're totally stone broke, that a lot of real estate brokers, they may work really hard, but it's feast or famine in that industry. People thought that was very successful, and maybe that's why they gave me those exclusive agreements to sell those apartment buildings in Manhattan, to sell the trophy property, etc. Then I analyzed Sam Bankman-Fried. Well, he wore a dirty, yellow, stinky t-shirt on stage with Bill Clinton. His hair was basically sticking up 5 inches. And he couldn't have a real beard because he didn't have that type of testosterone. So he could have shaved it off. He would look much better. But he didn't even portray that. So when I looked at the successful people that are dressing successful, I just couldn't understand it. And so maybe Sam Bankman-Fried is the exception. Maybe, possibly, people saw something in his personality and they felt bad for him. That's what I also thought. But the point is that looking at someone's education, he went to a technical institute in Massachusetts. He didn't go to Harvard like Ken Griffin did. Ray Dalio did not go to Harvard. He went to Long Island University. And the list goes on and on and on. So to really analyze, well, maybe it's the schooling. No, it's not education. It's possibly a subconscious quality. And this is what I'm starting to see in salespeople. I meet a lot of salespeople, many people I've met over my lifetime. And the most successful ones that became the director of sales or they started their own company, they had a tenacious self-confidence. There was a woman in Malba, New York that owned an insurance company for the commercial sector. So she would sell commercial insurance. And at the time in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when she started her career, that was not a female career. So she became very successful, started her own company. And when I analyzed her personality, she had a huge ego trip. And you could almost feel how big that ego trip was. So again, Bernie Madoff had a huge ego trip. Someone that's a surgeon has that ego trip. They have that chip on their shoulder. But then again, Ray Dalio and Ken Griffin, they don't have that chip on their shoulder. So what really is it? Is it more of intimidation? I don't know if that's it either, because I don't see Ray Dalio as being intimidating. I see Bernie Madoff as being intimidating. Yes, he was. He somehow convinced the auditors from the SEC not to audit him. Sam Bankman-Fried, somehow he never got audited because I don't know how that happened. Or maybe he did. Who knows what happened? The point is that how did these people become so successful? Yes, Bernie Madoff, Sam Bankman-Fried was basically a criminal, and they were criminal from the beginning. But if you study the criminal mind, those serial killers out there, it's almost like they have no emotion. So a psychopath and a narcissist is different. A psychopath doesn't feel emotions when they commit the crime. A narcissist does. Maybe that's what they are, Bernie Madoff and Sam Bankman-Fried. And so then what other qualities do they have? For example, I think it's internally. It's a thinking that they have to believe what they want to see. And that's what I realized. In all these people, it didn't matter who it was, whether it was Ken Griffin starting his hedge fund in his dorm when he was in college, or Ray Dalio working for 2 different companies. He said he got fired from both companies, and one company he punched his boss. So he didn't even care of his image. He was a focused person, and he had a lot of self-confidence, especially to punch your boss. And of course, Sam Bankman-Fried, honestly, to be honest with you, did he run a successful company? I guess the other company that he was running somehow became successful because they raised a lot of capital, FTX. He put his young friends that had no experience running a multi-billion-dollar company as high people in that company. So how did they help him become successful? They didn't. It was all in his own merit. And of course, Alameda Research, he couldn't even trade. He didn't even have 2 years experience. You can't say, oh, I have 2 years experience and I'm going to start a hedge fund. It doesn't work like that. You need a lot more experience. You need to get through a market cycle, a collapsing market, and you need to prove to your investors that you're capable of getting through that market cycle. Whether it's a trading sideways type of market like 2023, or a 2022 type of market where it didn't matter what direction you went to, somehow it was the wrong direction because of interest rate risk, or 2020, a collapsing market that was due to a pandemic. Some hedge funds did really well in that market, some didn't. And so for investors to put up a lot of capital in Sam Bankman-Fried, Alameda Research, I don't honestly know what those investors were thinking. I also analyzed his voice for a monotone type of voice that will put you into trance. Now, what is trance? Well, it's something that relaxes you. So I also analyzed Bernie Madoff and all the other people. Did they have that quality? Did they subdue their investors to calm down? Because that's also a trait that really successful people have. They calm down their investors. Bernie Madoff, when these people would go to him and tell him, I want to see where my money is, he would actually calm them down and he would get them to invest more money. This was an incredible person to raise capital. And if Bernie Madoff was maybe anything logical, he would have taken that money and invested in multiple hedge funds out there that were successful at trading that capital. And in 1 year's time, he could have made 30-40% return. So he could have literally grown even more and became a legitimate hedge fund. Actually, he would have become a funds of funds. So he could have actually got his investors to move over to the funds of funds. You know, when you're a criminal, do you think like that? No. You're basically waiting until you're going to get caught. And I think that's what the psychopath and the narcissist does, is that they keep pulling and pulling and pulling to see what they could get away with. How these people raise so much capital, yet they don't have so much experience or education. Well, that's my take on today's video, and I hope I was able to communicate with you the qualities of someone that's very successful in sales and raising capital. It's all about who you think you are. So if you think that you are incapable of doing something, then you're going to portray that to other people. You are going to put that in your subconscious mind. Someone who I met who was living, he was homeless. Actually, a couple people I've met who were homeless, and they became really successful. It was their thinking that they were blocked mentally. And the one person that I'll talk about, he picked up an article, saw a magazine for a mortgage course. He took it. He said, I have nothing to lose, because he was at the lowest point of his life. And whether he was just fed up with working for minimum wage and he just couldn't do it anymore, that's why he was living in a car. And once you really hit rock bottom, you can't go any deeper. So at a certain point, you're going to lose that. And what did he do? He went, took that course, and he worked so hard to write mortgages in 2009 era that he went from house to house and he wrote a mortgage and refinanced their mortgage, and he became very successful. So again, once he got past his, whatever it was, depression, or I don't know, once he got past that, he realized, what do I have to lose? And so he put it in his mind, visually, mentally, and he felt it. All he had to do was walk from house to house and do it. These people who become very successful in sales, in business, in movie stars, whoever it is, they have the visual capability of seeing who they want to be. And you have to feel it, you have to see it, and you have to believe it 100%, and it will happen. Thank you so much. Please remember to subscribe to my channel and do thumbs up. It doesn't hurt to touch that button. Please press both of those buttons because that will really help me out. Thank you so much.